You've done wonders with the bookings this quarter, Eliza. Leon's management strategy is really paying off. My mother beamed across the conference table, her eyes fixed adoringly on my younger brother, who sat scrolling through his phone, barely registering the conversation. Actually, I implemented the new booking system and marketing campaign, I said, sliding the quarterly report toward them. Leon hasn't been involved in any of the operational changes. My father waved his hand dismissively. But Leon approved everything as the manager, didn't he? That's leadership. I felt that familiar knot tighten in my stomach, a mixture of rage and resignation that had become my constant companion over the past year. My name is Eliza Matthews, 48 years old, with 20 years of hospitality experience and the dubious honor of being the invisible backbone of my family's resort. Silver Bay Resort had been on the brink of bankruptcy when I'd stepped in 18 months ago. My parents had called me in tears, decades of family legacy about to be washed away by mounting debts and declining bookings. I left my executive position at a luxury hotel chain, sacrificing a substantial salary and my own career advancement to save what my grandparents had built from nothing. The irony wasn't lost on me as I sat watching my brother receive praise for my salvation work. 6 months after I'd pulled Silver Bay back from the edge, restructuring debt, revamping services, rebuilding staff morale, my parents had made their announcement. Leon will be taking over as general manager, my father had declared over Sunday dinner, as if announcing a weather forecast rather than detonating a bomb in my life. It's always been meant to stay in the direct family line, and as Leon is settling down with Caroline now, it makes sense for him to take the helm. Leon, my 35-year-old brother who had worked precisely 3 months at the resort during college before declaring hospitality too demanding, now sat across from me as my boss, despite having contributed nothing to the resort's recovery beyond his surname. We're thinking of cutting back on the staff training programs, Leon said, finally looking up from his phone. They're expensive, and I don't see the immediate return on investment. Those programs are why our service quality scores improved by 40% this quarter. Sandra, our head of housekeeping, whispered excitedly as I inspected the newly renovated East Wing. They specifically asked if you would be available to discuss their daughter's wedding next spring. They won't book unless you personally oversee the arrangements. I smiled, grateful for the recognition from somewhere, at least. In the 12 months since I had returned, I had doubled our booking rate, increased our revenue streams by adding personalized luxury packages, and completely overhauled our dining experience by bringing in Chef Marcelo, who had trained in Michelin-starred restaurants. That evening, I stayed late finalizing the new winter experience packages that would keep us profitable during the traditionally slower months. The resort had never offered winter activities before, but my market research showed untapped potential in corporate retreats and wellness weekends during the off-season. As I was printing the final proposal, my mother walked in, a bright smile on her face. There you are. I was looking for you earlier. Did you hear Leon's wonderful news? No. What news? I asked, collating the pages of my carefully crafted strategy. He's been invited to speak at the Regional Tourism Conference. Isn't that fantastic? They want him to talk about the remarkable turnaround of Silver Bay. Your father and I are so proud. The pages crumpled slightly in my grip. I had written to that same conference 6 months ago, offering to present our case study, only to be told they had already filled their speaker slots. That's great, I managed. Did Leon mention that I've prepared the winter strategy? We could increase revenue by around 30% during traditionally dead months if we implement these ideas. My mother glanced at the document in my hands with polite disinterest. Oh, I'm sure Leon will look at it when he has time. He's so busy preparing for his speech now, but I'll tell him you've left some notes. Notes. Months of research, financial modeling, vendor negotiations, and staffing plans reduced to notes. The next morning, I arrived early as usual, only to find Leon presenting my winter strategy to the board. He'd swapped the cover page but hadn't bothered to remove my name from the headers of the subsequent pages. As you can see, my innovative approach could transform our winter season, he concluded confidently. The board members, 3 of my father's oldest friends, applauded. My father clapped Leon on the shoulder, his face glowing with pride. "This is exactly why we needed fresh leadership," he announced. "Leon sees opportunities where others don't." I slipped out of the room, unnoticed as always. Within 3 months of Leon fully taking control, the cracks began to show. First came the staff exodus. "I can't work like this anymore, Eliza," Chef Marcelo told me, his resignation letter already in hand. "Leon cut my ingredient budget by 30% and expects me to maintain the same quality. Then he berates my team in front of guests when they complain about the food. I have offers from 3 other resorts who actually value what I do." I couldn't blame him. Leon had systematically dismantled everything I had built, citing cost-cutting measures while simultaneously increasing his own compensation package. He fired our most experienced staff members, replacing them with inexperienced friends who would work for less. He slashed the maintenance budget, ignoring my warnings about the aging infrastructure. He discontinued the popular personalized packages that had attracted our most loyal guests, declaring them too complicated to administer. The reviews started to reflect the changes. "Silver Bay Resort has drastically declined in quality," read one scathing online review. "Poorly maintained rooms, indifferent service, and mediocre food. Nothing like the exceptional experience we had last year." Another stated, "Don't waste your money." This place is trading on its former reputation. The new management clearly has no idea what they're doing. I brought printouts of these reviews to Leon, attempting one more time to reason with him. "This is what happens when you cut corners in hospitality," I explained. Exactly 7 more weeks before the cancellations began pouring in. A major wedding party pulled out after hearing about the declining food quality. 3 corporate retreats canceled after reading recent reviews. Our winter bookings, the ones my strategy had carefully cultivated, were virtually non-existent. I watched it all unravel from my increasingly marginalized position. My role had been reduced to handling special projects, which meant doing the work no one else wanted while having no authority to implement meaningful changes. The final straw came when I overheard my father on the phone with our bank, pleading for an extension on our loan payments, the same loans I had restructured and made manageable before Leon's takeover. That night, I drove along the coastal road, windows down, letting the salt air clear my head. I took the scenic route, one I rarely traveled, and that's when I saw it. The dilapidated Blue Harbor Inn, a once charming property that had been shuttered for years. A weathered "for sale" sign swayed in the evening breeze. I pulled over, staring at the neglected building silhouetted against the twilight sky. In that moment, something shifted inside me. If my family couldn't see my value, perhaps it was time I showed them in a way they couldn't ignore. The realtor looked surprised when I called the next morning requesting an immediate viewing of Blue Harbor Inn. "It needs significant work," she warned as she unlocked the front door, revealing years of neglect. Peeling wallpaper, water damage, outdated fixtures. The place was a disaster. It was perfect. "I'll take it," I said, already seeing beyond the decay to what could be. "And I can close quickly. Cash offer." 20 years of saving, investing, and living below my means had left me with substantial resources I had nearly depleted helping my family's resort. This time, my investment would be for me. I signed the papers 3 days later, emptying my savings and securing a modest business loan. I didn't tell my family. There seemed little point. They rarely asked about my life outside of how it served Silver Bay anyway. I gave my notice the following Monday, placing a simple resignation letter on Leon's desk. "You're what?" Leon sputtered when he finally read it 2 days later. "You can't leave. Who's going to handle the Fleming wedding next month? Or the holiday decorations? Or the vendor negotiations?" "I'm sure you'll figure it out," I replied, with a calmness that surprised even me. "After all, you're the manager." My parents reacted with bewilderment rather than concern. "But what will you do?" my mother asked, her forehead creased in confusion. "Where will you go?" "I have plans," I said simply. "It's time I focused on my own future." They didn't press further. They never did when it came to my life, my ambitions, my dreams. The day after my last at Silver Bay, I stood in the empty, echoing lobby of Blue Harbor Inn, my inn, and made a promise to myself. This place would become everything Silver Bay could have been, should have been, and I would build it without compromising my vision or values. I reached out to Chef Marcelo first. "I'm starting something new," I told him over coffee. "Something that will value quality and excellence above all else. I need a culinary director who understands that vision." His eyes lit up as I outlined my plans for what would become Aurora Haven. Next, I contacted Sandra, then our former maintenance director, Miguel, and our guest relations manager, Talia, all the talented people Leon had discarded. One by one, they joined me, drawn by the prospect of building something truly exceptional and the promise of being valued for their contributions. We worked 16-hour days for months. I sold my condo and moved into the property, often falling asleep amid blueprints and fabric samples. Every decision, from the sustainable materials used in the renovation to the local artisans we commissioned for decorative elements, reflected our guests who had been disappointed by recent experiences flocked to Aurora Haven, drawn by word-of-mouth recommendations and the reputation of our team. "This is what Silver Bay used to be, but better," one guest commented, loud enough for me to overhear at the bar. "I can't believe they let Eliza go. Their loss is definitely our gain." I smiled politely but said nothing. Aurora Haven wasn't about revenge. It was about finally creating something that fully reflected my vision and values. Meanwhile, news of Silver Bay's continued decline reached me through industry channels. They had lost their 4-star rating. Occupancy had dropped below 30% during what should have been their busiest season. Staff turnover had reached record levels. I didn't take pleasure in their struggles, but I couldn't deny a certain vindication. The contrast between our trajectories spoke volumes about the difference between leadership based on entitlement versus leadership earned through competence and hard work. 6 months after our grand opening, Aurora Haven was operating at 95% capacity with a waiting list for peak season dates. Our restaurant had already received regional recognition, and 3 luxury travel publications had featured us in glowing reviews. "Aurora Haven represents the future of boutique luxury resorts," wrote one prominent travel critic. "It offers the perfect balance of sophisticated comfort, environmental consciousness, and genuinely warm service. This is what happens when hospitality expertise meets passionate vision." I had framed that review, not out of vanity, but as a reminder of what was possible when you stayed true to your standards and surrounded yourself with people who shared your commitment to excellence. One Tuesday afternoon, as I was reviewing plans for our new spa addition with our architect, the front desk called. "Ms. Matthews, your parents are in the lobby asking to speak with you." I froze momentarily, then composed myself. "Please show them to the garden terrace. I'll be there shortly." I found them sitting awkwardly at one of our handcrafted tables, looking out of place among the carefully curated beauty of Aurora Haven's gardens. They had aged in the 15 months since I'd last seen them, my father's shoulders slightly more stooped, my mother's face etched with new worry lines. "This is quite impressive," my father said, gesturing vaguely at the surroundings. "We had no idea you were building all this." "You never asked," I replied simply, taking a seat across from them. "What can I do for you today?" They exchanged uncomfortable glances before my mother spoke. "Silver Bay is in trouble, Eliza." "Serious trouble." "I've heard," I acknowledged. "We need your help," my father blurted out, his pride clearly struggling with the admission. "Leon, he's done his best, but the situation has become unmanageable. The bank is threatening foreclosure. We could lose everything. Your grandparents' legacy, our home, everything." "And what would you like me to do?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral despite the emotions churning beneath the surface. "Come back," my mother pleaded. "Take over management. Save Silver Bay like you did before. We know we made a mistake now, choosing Leon. We should have recognized your expertise." I studied their faces, genuinely distressed but still not truly understanding what they had done. They saw me as a solution to their problem, not as a person whose loyalty and talents they had disregarded for decades. "You made your choice," I said finally, standing up. "Now you have to live with it." "But it's family," my father protested, his voice rising slightly. "Doesn't that mean anything to you?" I gestured toward the resort around us. "My family's here now. The people who value my contributions, who support my vision, who recognize my worth without being forced to by circumstances. That's real family." I signaled for a server. "Jennifer will bring you whatever refreshments you'd like before you leave." Most of the original staff have quit. The bank has given us 30 days to make a substantial payment, or they'll begin foreclosure proceedings. She pushed a folder across my desk. "These are the financials. Leon has made a complete mess of everything. But you could fix it, Eliza. You've always been able to fix things." I left the folder unopened. "Mom, I'm running my own resort now. Successfully. I can't abandon my responsibilities here to rescue a business that pushed me aside." "But what about our family history? Your grandparents built Silver Bay from nothing. Can you really let that legacy disappear?" "The legacy disappeared the moment you and Dad decided that birth order mattered more than competence," I replied, the word sharp but necessary. "You chose Leon because he's your son, not because he was qualified. That decision dishonored Grandpa's legacy far more than any bank foreclosure could." My mother's expression hardened. "So that's it? Revenge? You're happy to see us fail because your feelings were hurt?" I took a deep breath, maintaining my composure. "This isn't revenge, Mom. This is consequence. And it's not about hurt feelings. It's about respect, recognition, and making business decisions that reflect reality rather than family sentiment." "We're offering you full control now," she pressed. "No interference from us or Leon. You could run Silver Bay however you want." "And what happens when you decide Leon deserves another chance? Or when you disagree with my methods?" "The problem was never just the title, Mom. It was the fundamental lack of respect for my expertise and contribution." She left without resolving anything, the financial folder still untouched on my desk. I donated it to our fire pit that evening, watching the papers curl and blacken in the flames as our guests enjoyed s'mores and stargazing. Over the next month, the pleas continued. My father called, then my aunt, then even Leon himself, each attempting different approaches to the same request. Help us, save us, fix what we broke. I remained firm in my refusal, though not without moments of doubt. Was I being too harsh, too unforgiving? But then I would look around at what we were building at Aurora Haven, a business based on mutual respect, where contribution was recognized regardless of title or tenure, and know I had made the right choice. The final attempt came in the form of a formal letter, delivered by courier. It was signed by both my parents and Leon, offering me majority ownership of Silver Bay Resort if I would step in as executive director. Too little, too late, I murmured, filing the letter away rather than responding. 2 weeks later, local news reported that Silver Bay Resort had entered receivership. The property would continue operating under bank management while they sought buyers. That night, I sat alone on Aurora Haven's private beach, watching the same moon reflect on the same ocean that bordered both properties. I felt no triumph, only a complex mixture of sadness for what could have been and relief that I had finally broken free of patterns that had diminished me for decades. 1 year to the day after Aurora Haven's grand opening, I stood on our event lawn, surrounded by our team, accepting the National Hospitality Association's Resort of the Year award. This recognition belongs to everyone who believed in Aurora Haven's vision, I said into the microphone, looking at the proud faces around me. Every person who joined us on this journey, who contributed their talents and passion to creating something truly exceptional. This isn't just a business. It's a community that values excellence, authenticity, and the true meaning of hospitality. The applause was deafening, particularly from our staff, many of whom had followed me from Silver Bay, and others who had joined us along the way, drawn by our growing reputation. That same week, we received word that Silver Bay Resort had been removed from the Elite Travelers Recommended list after 20 consecutive years of inclusion. Initiatives had become a model for the industry. Most importantly, we had built a team culture where everyone's contributions were valued and recognized. We had profit sharing for all employees, comprehensive benefits, and career development opportunities that had resulted in virtually zero turnover, unheard of in the hospitality industry. The morning after the award ceremony, I arrived at my office to find a small package waiting for me. Inside was a tarnished silver key on an old leather fob, the original key to Silver Bay's first building, which my grandfather had kept as a good luck charm throughout his life. A note in my mother's handwriting accompanied it. Your grandfather would have been proud of what you've built. He always said you had his spirit, stubborn, visionary, unwilling to compromise on quality. I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner. The new owners are clearing out the historical items. I thought you should have this. I turned the key over in my hand, feeling its weight and history. Then I placed it in a shadow box along with Aurora Haven's first room key, a tangible reminder of endings and beginnings, failures and triumphs. The feature in Global Traveler magazine ran to 8 pages, with stunning photography of Aurora Haven's architecture, grounds, and guest experiences. From overlooked to outstanding, How Eliza Matthews Created the Year's Most Celebrated Resort, read the headline. The article detailed my hospitality background, my vision for Aurora Haven, and the swift rise of our reputation. It mentioned Silver Bay only briefly, as a footnote to my career rather than the defining chapter I had once considered it. Matthews has revolutionized the concept of luxury in this region, the writer concluded. Aurora Haven doesn't just offer exceptional amenities and service, it provides a holistic experience that honors the natural environment, local culture, and the individual needs of each guest. It stands as a testament to what's possible when expertise meets passion and principled leadership. I kept my response to the article's praise modest during interviews, crediting our team and our commitment to our founding values. Privately, though, I allowed myself to savor the recognition, not out of vanity, but as validation of the difficult choices I had made and the boundaries I had established. Meanwhile, industry publications noted Silver Bay's transformation into just another link in a corporate chain, lamenting the loss of its unique character and historical significance. What was once a jewel of independent hospitality has been reduced to a standardized experience indistinguishable from dozens of other properties, wrote one particularly blunt reviewer. The soul of Silver Bay has been irrevocably lost in this transition, a cautionary tale of what happens when leadership fails to understand the true value of what they steward. I didn't seek out these articles, but they inevitably found their way to me through well-meaning colleagues and friends. Each one reinforced that I had made the right decision in walking away, in building something new rather than fighting to save what my family had so carelessly devalued. During a prestigious industry panel discussion, a moderator asked what I had learned from Aurora Haven's remarkable success. That excellence requires both vision and recognition, I answered after a moment's reflection. You need clear standards and people whose contributions toward those standards are genuinely valued. In hospitality particularly, your team's engagement directly translates to guest experience. There are no shortcuts. And what advice would you give to family businesses in transition? He pressed, clearly aware of my background, though tactful enough not to mention it directly. Choose leadership based on capability, not genealogy, I replied simply. The name on the deed means less to your guests than the quality of their experience. The audience applauded, and several attendees approached afterward to share similar experiences of family business dynamics gone wrong. I listened with empathy, recognizing the anticipating needs before they were expressed. Talia, our guest experience director who had followed me from Silver Bay, joined me at the railing. The Thompsons are checking out tomorrow, she said. They've already booked their return visit for next year, their 5th stay with us. They were Silver Bay loyalists for 20 years before that, I recalled. Until they found something better. Talia smiled. Mr. Thompson said something interesting today. He said staying here feels like being part of a family that actually notices you. I laughed at the unintentional aptness of his comment. Well, that's exactly what we've built, isn't it? A place where people are seen and valued. Later that evening, we gathered for our weekly team dinner, a tradition I'd instituted from the beginning. Everyone from housekeeping to management shared the same table, exchanging ideas and experiences in a setting of mutual respect. As conversations flowed around me, I realized I had stopped looking over my shoulder, stopped wondering if my parents would recognize my achievements, stopped measuring myself against their expectations. Somewhere along the way, their approval had become irrelevant to my sense of worth. I occasionally heard news of my family through mutual acquaintances. My parents had downsized to a condo in a neighboring town. Leon had taken a sales position with a timeshare company. Silver Bay Resort had been completely renovated, its historical character largely erased beneath corporate branding. None of it affected me as it once would have. I had built something that reflected my values, surrounded myself with people who recognized my worth, and created success on my own terms. The validation I had once desperately sought from my family had become unnecessary, replaced by the authentic satisfaction of living according to my own standards of excellence. After dinner, Chef Marcelo unveiled a surprise, a spectacular cake commemorating our 2-year anniversary. A toast, he announced, raising his glass, to Eliza, who showed us all that sometimes you have to leave what you know to create what you imagine. As glasses clinked and cheers erupted around the table, I looked at these people who had become my chosen family, who had taken risks alongside me, who celebrated my strengths rather than overlooked them, who valued contribution over entitlement. No, I countered, raising my own glass. To all of us. Aurora Haven isn't just my vision. It's what we've built together. Every person at this table has made this dream possible through their talent, dedication, and belief. Later that night, as I walked the quiet grounds making my final checks, a habit I maintained despite having capable staff who could handle it, I paused at our entrance sign. The name Aurora Haven illuminated softly against the night sky, representing not just a successful business, but a personal renaissance. I had stopped trying to prove my worth to people unwilling to see it, and in doing so, had created something more valuable than I could have imagined. Not just a resort, but a community. Not just success, but fulfillment. Not just professional recognition, but personal peace. And that, I realized, was the most meaningful triumph of all.